C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity was adapted from his series of World War II London radio broadcasts. How can Christians and Jews possibly forgive the evil Nazis? Viktor Frankl, a Jewish psychologist who survived Auschwitz, also ponders this question. Also, how can Christian soldiers kill during times of war? And how do totalitarian regimes threaten Christianity? And how were German Christians deceived into supporting Hitler? Please, we welcome interesting questions in the comments. Let us learn and reflect together. At the end of our talk, we'll discuss the sources used for this video. Please feel free to follow along in the PowerPoint script we uploaded to SlideShare, which includes illustrations. Our sister blog includes footnotes, and both include our Amazon book links. Mere Christianity was compiled from a series of radio addresses by C.S. Lewis explaining the tenets of Christianity, which were broadcast during the dark days of World War II, when Londoners fled to the safety of the underground subway tunnels while Nazi bombers destroyed their homes above. We will reflect on when he referred to this monumental struggle, one of the rare political struggles that actually pitted the forces of good and evil against each other in Mere Christianity. Born in Dublin in 1898 before the partition of Ireland, C.S. Lewis was baptized into the Anglican Church of Ireland and became disenchanted with Christianity because of his experiences at school and serving in the trenches of World War I, but regained his Christian faith in the interwar years. Mere Christianity refutes the misconceptions that kept him from the faith. One such misconception is the modern notion that right and wrong is relative. But how can morality be relative, since Nazism is so evidently evil? C.S. Lewis proclaims, we are forced to believe in a real right and wrong, that is, a law of nature shared by all cultures. And C.S. Lewis served in the English army in the trenches of World War I, which led him to confront the question, how can a Christian soldier obey the commandment, do not kill? C.S. Lewis asserts that a Christian soldier can kill an enemy, since the commandment do not kill actually means do not murder in the original Hebrew. C.S. Lewis observes, war is a dreadful thing, and I can respect an honest pacifist, though I think he is entirely mistaken. What I cannot understand is this sort of semi-pacifism you get nowadays, which gives people the idea that though you have to fight, you ought to do it with a long face and as if you were ashamed of it. But C.S. Lewis does offer this caution. We may kill if necessary, but we must not hate and enjoy hating. We may punish if necessary, but we must not enjoy it. C.S. Lewis continues, even while we kill and punish, we must try to feel about the enemy as we feel about ourselves. To wish that he were not bad, to hope that he may, in this world or another, be cured. In fact, to wish is good. That is what is meant in the Bible by loving our enemy. Wishing is good, not feeling fond of him, nor saying that he is nice when he is not. C.S. Lewis also mentions the psychological difficulties some soldiers faced when drafted to serve in the military, who found themselves psychologically incapable of defeating the fear men face when they encounter the enemy on the front lines. How can you forgive the evil Nazis? C.S. Lewis observes. Everyone says forgiveness is a lovely idea, until they have something to forgive, as we had during the war. And then to mention the subject at all is to be greeted with howls of anger. Half of you, and he's referring to his radio audience, want to ask me, I wonder how you'd feel about forgiving the Gestapo if you were a Pole or a Jew. Surprisingly, in his chapter on morality and psychoanalysis, C.S. Lewis ponders a question. Can we be quite certain how we would have behaved if we had been saddled with the psychological problems, and then with the bad upbringing, and then with the power, say, of Himmler? And this is why we Christians are told not to judge. We see only the results which a man's choices make out of his raw material. But God does not judge him on his raw material at all, but on what he has done with it. And the question of how you can forgive the Nazis is also discussed in Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, where Frankl shares how some Jews survived the work camps of Auschwitz during World War II. In the afterword, Dr. Winslade says, Frankl felt an intense connection to Vienna, especially to psychiatric patients who needed his help in the post-war period. He also believed strongly in reconciliation rather than revenge. He once remarked, I do not forget any good deed done to me, and I do not carry a judge for a bad one. Notably, Frankl renounced the idea of collective guilt. Frankl was able to accept that his Viennese colleagues and neighbors may have known about or even participated in his persecution. and he did not condemn them for failing to join the resistance or die heroic deaths. When Jews returned to their old homes, often they found that others had moved in, and quite often they refused to leave what they saw as their home. We do not know what the post-war Austrian policy was in these situations. This passage suggests that Frankl had moved into his old house, or at least found another in his old neighborhood. Dr. Winslade continues, instead, Frankl was deeply committed to the idea that even a vile Nazi criminal or a seemingly hopeless madman has the potential to transcend evil or insanity by making responsible choices. But Frankl notes that many who were released from the concentration camps were unable to forgive their tormentors. People with natures of a more primitive kind could not escape the brutality that had surrounded them in camp life. Now being free, they thought that they could use their freedom licentiously and ruthlessly. The only thing that changed was that they were now the oppressors instead of the oppressed. They became instigators, not objects, of willful force and injustice. They justified their behavior by their own terrible experiences. Now, Nazism is a totalitarian regime that seeks to have all human institutions serve the needs of the state. But C.S. Lewis teaches us, the state exists simply to promote and to protect the ordinary happiness of human beings in this life, to permit them the personal liberty to enjoy time with their families and friends, and to live a normal life. Unless the state is helping to increase and prolong and protect such moments, all the laws, parliaments, armies, courts, police, economics, etc. are simply a waste of time. In the same way, the Church exists for nothing else but to draw men into Christ, to make them little Christs. If they're not doing that, all the cathedrals, clergy, missions, sermons, even the Bible itself, are simply a waste of time. Many of C.S. Lewis's thoughts are confirmed in Vatican II's decree on freedom of religion. Many of his arguments echo those made by Karol Wojtyła, the future Pope John Paul II, in his book Sources of Renewal, the implementation of Vatican II. What distinguishes the authoritarian fascist state from a democracy? Authoritarians deny liberty and due process to the individual to serve the state, while democracy protects the rights of the individual. C.S. Lewis teaches us that the Christian teaching of the immortality of the soul means we should cherish the dignity and freedom of the individual. C.S. Lewis reasons, if individuals live only 70 years, then a state or a nation or a civilization, which may last for 1,000 years, and here he's referring to Hitler's 1,000-year Reich, is more important than an individual. But if Christianity is true, then the individual is not only more important, but incomparably more important, for he has eternal life. The life of a state or a civilization, compared with his, is only a moment. One of the primary dangers a Christian face when confronting totalitarian regimes in the past century is that they seek to corrupt Christianity itself. This happened under Stalin and his successors, where the communists insisted on appointing compromised church leaders to lead the Orthodox Church. This is happening today in communist China, where the current dictator seeks to undermine both the Buddhist and Catholic faith traditions in China. And it happened in Hitler's Germany, where the Nazis attempted to found a state church that believed that Jesus was not a Jew. Both the Protestant confessing churches and the Catholic Church resisted this encroachment of the Nazi state, although some were compromised. Pope Pius XI famously smuggled in the Easter message that was read in the pulpits across Germany in the midst of World War II, when most of the world could not imagine how the Nazis could be driven from the European continent. Now, Viktor Frankl tells us, the experiences of camp life show that man does have a choice of action. Apathy can be overcome, irritability can be suppressed. Man can preserve a vestige of spiritual freedom, of independence of mind, even in terrible conditions of psychic and physical stress. No matter how dire your circumstances, you can hope, and you can always be kind to those around you. How can we discover the meaning of life? According to Viktor Frankl's logotherapy, we can discover this meaning in many ways. By creating a work or doing a deed. By experiencing something such as goodness, truth, and beauty in nature or culture. Or encountering someone by experiencing another person in his very uniqueness, by loving him. And by the attitude we take towards unavoidable suffering. We will conclude with C.S. Lewis's observation. Progress means not just changing, but changing for the better. No set of moral ideas were truer or better than any other. There would be no sense in preferring civilized morality to savage morality, or Christian morality to Nazi morality. Next, we will reflect on C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity, foreshadowed the main decrees of Vatican II, which was convened 2 decades after World War II and was a reaction to the experiences of the Catholic Church under the various fascist regimes, and which furthered the ecumenical movement. And we next reflect on why this book appeals to Christians of all denominations, and whether C.S. Lewis was inspired by the teachings of the early Church Fathers. C.S. Lewis ponders both the cardinal virtues and the theological virtues of faith, hope, and charity, or love, and other moral issues, including romance and Christian marriage. C.S. Lewis ponders whether Christianity is hard or easy. And previously we reflected on C.S. Lewis's Great Divorce, on Hell and Heaven, and Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And now we'll discuss the sources we use for this video. C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity, printed in 1952, was derived from 3 volumes printed from 1942 to 1944, which were in turn adapted from a series of BBC broadcasts during the Nazi London bombing blitz. The book has always appealed more to evangelists than to theologians, since it seeks to simplify theology so ordinary Christians can understand it. Our reflections will establish that he was inspired by writings of St. Augustine and the early Church Fathers, which makes sense since he was professor of medieval studies. But since most of his listeners and readers were Protestants, he rarely credited his sources, and sought to rephrase them so they didn't sound Catholic, and sounded more modern than classical. Now, in my humble opinion, he oversimplifies sometimes. Sometimes it's difficult to discern what he's actually teaching. Many of the topics covered in Mere Christianity are covered in his Chronicles of Narnia allegorically. And Narnia is an alternate children's world where the lion Aslan plays a Christ-like character, where many of the animals walk and talk like their fellow humans. In my printed version, Mere Christianity is paired with Screwtape Letters, which is another classic appreciated by many modern Christians. In discussions between demons, he imagines how they tempt Christians to be hypocrites if they cannot succeed in having them reject Christianity outright. Like ancient works, C.S. Lewis divides Mere Christianity into 4 separate books. Book 1, Right and Wrong is a clue to the meaning of the universe. Book 2, What Christians Believe. Book 3, Christian Behavior, which includes the cardinal virtues and the theological virtues. Book 4, Beyond Personality, are first steps in the doctrine of the Trinity, plus whether Christianity is hard or easy. We also review another classic written during the World War II era, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, which is one of the most remarkable and life-changing books I've ever read. And it describes how he was able to survive the horrors of the Auschwitz work camps. The YouTube description includes a link to our PowerPoint script that we uploaded to SlideShare and also our blog. Please support this channel by sharing this video with your friends and by clicking on the like and subscribe buttons and by clicking on the Amazon links to purchase any of the books we discussed, which will earn us a very small affiliate commission. And please consider becoming a patron of our channel. Plus, we will host special discussion groups for our patrons. Plus, you can click on the Meetup or small M icon to participate in our online discussions, where we practice our future YouTube scripts. And please click on the links for other videos that will broaden your knowledge and improve your soul.